Okay. My talk is very simple. I actually was originally going to do one on SVG animation, and I quickly realized that was actually a full talk's worth of material, so I will probably be giving one on SVG animation in the future. So this is in the spirit of a true lightning talk. It is 5 neat things about React and Redux. I work in React and Redux probably more frequently than any other stack. I also work in MobX sometimes and really React Native, but these are 5 things that I have discovered on my own that I wanted to share with you that are useful. So the first one, oh, by the way, the theme is weird action figures. No reason, just it delights me. So the ASX arrow functions make for better function declarations attached to a class. Normally I don't like sprinkling these things all over the place, but at the end of the day, if you have to pick between noA.bind or oh yes, the oh yes one's a little bit easier to read and parsing for me personally whenever I'm digging through a bunch of code. So there you go. That is there's a right way to use arrow functions. That's a good way to use them. The decorator this guy. I just want to. I don't know who some of these are. Like actually, the '90s wrestler action figures were the best ones because there's like real uncanny valley on the face. So I think I got a few of those. Decorator syntax is much nicer for higher order components. So what I'm talking about is this: one of the ways you get stuff done in React and Redux is and really these are functions that they pull in the thing you got and then they bolt some things to it and then they give you the thing back, right? So you can decorate a bunch of stuff. So this is cool until you get about 6 of them, then you're like wrapping. It's kind of like whenever you're making a bunch of Lodash transformations and everything's wrapped. It gets a little hard to read when there's a bunch. Or right here, suddenly I can just sequence them one after the other. So that's kind of like using Lodash chain instead of wrapping them. This right here doesn't come, you have to actually use a little Babel transformer to get those, but man, it's worth it. Because once you do that, now it's much easier to make higher order components for refactoring busy components. So this is what I'm talking about. Now, there's a lot of code here, but I'm just going to give you the gist of what's going on. I'm going to go get something, right? And then while I'm getting it, I'm going to fetch. So if this is something that I'm doing pretty often, like I'm loading a bunch of components, and then as the component loads, I got to go get something. Well, this thing, it handles the entire promise. All this stuff in component will mount. All this stuff in component did mount. And the fetching flag, all that stuff. It's all taken care of for me. It's going to bolt that onto that component for me. And then all I got to do is add the little with something, and I can go reuse it everywhere I want. It's just a very easy way to make a reusable thing. So feel free to get creative. Connect all that stuff that you get from all these well-known React frameworks. They all work this way. Apollo works this way. So you can do it. Consider not using Switch for your reducers. You might using Switch. It's fine. But let me just show you another pattern that's useful. I use it whenever the code gets big. Here we are. Here's Switch. That's what you're probably used to seeing. Got like a little first name, last name sort of thing going on here. This is cool, but there's some downsides. What if there was like a lot of business logic here and I wanted to pull it out? Or what if I really needed to declare a variable inside of this? Well, you can put some brackets around it, I guess, but it starts to get gangly after a while. This right here, you can make a little deal that's basically a little strategy pattern that plugs everything in for you. And then now, this is a little functional closure. I can actually import this from somewhere else. I can declare variables, everything's scoped. It kind of quarantines every single thing you're going to be doing. This works exactly the same otherwise as this. And this right here, using functions instead of switch, it's a little easier to refactor. So don't see a lot of people talking about that, but it's worked well for me. So I thought you might like it. And then finally, the 5th one, this is a way that I describe the read. This is really more if you're a beginner and you haven't really internalized how the pattern works. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Dispatch is a catapult. React is a mountain. Components are little huts that live on that mountain, and actions are packages. So this is what I'm talking about. There's a little image. This basically represents the flow of data. So imagine that the person at the very top of the mountain can pass data down the mountain. They can like throw it down. But people who are living on the mountain, they can't throw things back up the mountain. That's React, right? It's one directional data flow. Parents can talk to children. Children cannot talk to parents. So how do you get things back up the mountain? Well, you build a catapult and you just fling it up to the top. And that catapult's name is dispatch. And that's what it does. So those actions right there, those packages, if you can imagine, those actions are the crate that your data lives inside of with a little address on it like give this to Bob. So it goes up to the top of the mountain, and at the top of the mountain, they open up the crate, and they're like, this one goes to Bob, and he gets a taco. And then they pass it down to the hut that Bob lives in. And that's the whole pattern. To get things further up the chain, you got to dispatch them, and then you can pass them down all day long. So I imagine every time I'm working in Redux and React, I imagine these little catapults just like, boom, every time I dispatch an action. And that delights me, because I am a big kid. So that is my lightning talk. I hope that these 5 little tips that I've learned over the, I guess, years at this point doing this is useful. Yes? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Everyone knows catapults are better than trebuchets. And those aren't fighting words. Yeah, what's up, Adam? Yeah, that's fine. But as long as you're using the same preprocessor, they don't change for me. All right, that's all I got, y'all. Thanks.